Okay, joining us now is Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Thanks very much, sir, for speaking to us. Of course, a condemnable incident, what has happened to the Chief Justice of India. But what do you think are the factors that drove this attack?
Look, I don't think we must go into too much of psychoanalysis, because the first point I wish to make is that it is not about an individual, about Judge A, Judge B, Chief Justice X, Chief Justice Y. It is about the very institution of a third pillar of democracy. And that symbolism is very serious when you attack it at the base. So it must be condemned unequivocally, universally, without ifs and buts, without ideology, without any conditionality, because it strikes at the root of the very concept of holding this institution, above all kinds of partisan issues and politics. That's the larger issue. The second thing, Padmaja, is that it is bad enough and terrible for any human being to do it. But according to me, it's inexcusable in any manner for a lawyer to even think of doing it. See, lawyers should never identify with a cause or an issue beyond their professional, obligation. And you represent a person or an entity, and you have to stop. And that's why there are all these rules and regulations about lawyers. So I think that really compounds the felony 100 times over. I commend, I have done so in my tweets today, that, calmness under tension, under pressure is a very special trait. But as I said in my tweet, I'm not at all surprised, because Chief Justice has shown that in many other diverse situations which every day come up before his court in terms of tension, shouting, altercation, adversarial allegations, etc. So I think that in a sudden atmosphere, not to do any knee-jerk reaction, not to go off the handle, is something quite remarkable. It's easier said than done. And I think that is something to be appreciated. The last thing I want to say, apart from the humorous thing I did on my second tweet today, is to say that, look, the biggest punishment you can give such people, Padmaja, is to not give them too much attention. To ignore you is the biggest punishment for a terrorist, or for a person who's a sensationalist criminal, or for a person who wants to do drama on candid camera. And that ignorance by public, by society, by the nation, ignorance doesn't mean that you don't punish them. But to ignore you is a very big punishment which should be meted out to him by everybody. Don't give him importance. Don't psychoanalyze him.
So you rightly said that this is a man who is looking for his 10 seconds of fame, and yet the commentary that we are hearing in the country right now around this entire episode is that this perhaps is a sign of the times, that there is a widespread hatred which has in some way been created in the country, and that the Chief Justice was attacked because he's a Dalit. What do you say about that?
I partly agree and partly don't agree with that. I agree that anybody who does this thing is motivated by his own self-centered, eccentric view of some issue. Clearly, here was a person who brought religion into it. At least his utterances show that. I don't know what he was thinking, what he was wanting to do, but certainly utterances show that. But I would not like to paint it that, look, I'm a Hindu shouting, another eccentric, crazy coot is shouting Buddhism, a third one is shouting Islam. It doesn't matter, because such people could have different variations of this. The real thing is that there is something which is, at the back of their mind, which is unhinged, which is irrational. And I don't think you must focus on the content that because he said so, therefore he's a Hindu radical or he's a Muslim radical, etc. I think they have to be condemned unconditionally, universally. And the part I think is right is it is a sign of our times. Unfortunate. But our times have become very much more divisive. Our times have become very much more confrontational. Our times have become very much more, you're either black or you're white. There are no shades of grey. Real life is all about grey. Our times have become very much, if you're not with me 100%, you are my enemy. And that's a ridiculous thought, but that's the way the society is divided. So I think in that context, you are right, that it is a sign of our times, intolerance. Explosions, thinking of you in black and white terms, thinking of you as a friend, as an extreme friend or an extreme enemy. They're all, binaries which are not true in real life. Real life is never binary.
Another claim being made is also that, in some way this attacker is backed by the ruling party or by the right-wing ecosystem or by the government. Do you think that this is a correct surmise?
I have never said anything like that. To say that he's backed by the government would be outlandish in that sense. And I think the governments commit blunders. Every government does, and so has this government. But it would be blunderous beyond blunder to think that they have set up a man like this to do this. I mean, it would really. I think what is meant is that you have created an ambience of inhibition, intolerance, anger, divisiveness, distrust. Nothing to do with the government, nothing to do with this particular man. But the overall ambience is a creation in this country for the last several years. And that ambience somewhere can lead to things like that. That doesn't mean the government has set him up. But it certainly means that the government should be very careful of the ambience it creates in different situations of intolerance, of, that obsessive sense of uniformity, imposing, identity, oneness. Not India should be proud to be planet Earth's most diverse spot. There is no more diverse spot on planet Earth than India. So to have an idea of just oneness in everything, oneness in thought, oneness in religion, oneness in dress, habit, smell, talk, eating, these are not concepts which are truly Indian according to me. And therefore, somewhere it leads to some unhinged, crazy coot like this person.
We were speaking to Mr. Harish Salve earlier, and in fact, he also remarked that this is not the first time that this has happened. There was, in the Supreme Court, we had Justice Gajendra Gadkar attacked earlier. He had a shoe thrown at him. And at that time also, he had said that, this man has already lost his case. I don't want him to lose his shoe. So is this kind of political spin correct? This incident, though condemnable, is not unprecedented, and in all likelihood, it has been done by a headline hunter. Then why this political spin?
No, I have said so. I'm saying it's the larger issue of a atmosphere and ambience in this country. I'm not saying that it is something which is created or triggered by a person or a government in that sense. I have said so clearly. But I do believe that there always must be not the penalty which such a person attracts, but there must be also a sense of balance and humor, which is why I tweeted that thing about Lord Denning. Imagine, look at the calmness and the composure which this Chief Justice has shown in a different context, and which Lord Denning said in that witty remark which I have tweeted. So I think that is another facet. I think too much of pomposity, too much of, overreaction is what these crazy people want. So I think you really, by ignoring him or by just, relegating him to the sidelines, you do them the biggest punishment they can imagine.
All right, Dr. Singhvi, thank you very much for speaking to us on NDTV. Thanks very much, Mr. Salve, for speaking to us, because at this time, it is also important to assess what the sane voices in the country and across the world are saying. First of all, sir, how do you assess the incident, the attack on the Chief Justice of India in court? Is it a reflection of growing intolerance in society, especially towards judicial independence?
I think the Chief Justice has acted with grace. This is not the first time it has happened. It's happened in the past. I think it was Chief Justice Gajendra Gadkar, at whom a litigant had hurled a shoe. Mr. Parasaran used to always tell us this story. When that happened, of course, the security came and caught him. And Chief Justice Gajendra Gadkar only said, please restore his shoe to him. He has lost his case. I don't want him to lose a shoe also. So that is, they've always treated this with equanimity and grace. The problem is, this man was not a litigant, he's a lawyer. And a lawyer has to conduct himself in conformity with certain basic standards. So the Bar Council has acted wisely and rightly and with alacrity in taking action. But I suppose that's where the matter must rest.
That's right. But sir, there is also a school of thought that judges in public domain are now like politicians. Whatever they do, whatever they say is up for scrutiny. Whatever they, in fact, many of the cases also end up being extremely political. So the argument of people is that when you are going to make political statements, you are going to be up for scrutiny, and then you're also going to invite such reactions. What do you have to say to that?
See, what has gone wrong today, what is, firstly, and I won't say this has gone wrong. Firstly, the judges have on their plate all kinds of litigations, and partly they have taken on all kinds of things on their plate, some of which have political overtones, religious overtones. We can have, it's a debate of us for a separate day whether they should be doing some of the things they do or not do. Well, that's a separate debate. So they are in public domain, but the real problem is something else. The real problem today is the social media and these channels like Bar and Bench and Law Chakra and all. They are making free and fair discourse in the court very difficult. Judges and lawyers, when they are in the course of lawyers making submissions and judges asking questions or making comments, they are in a discussion mode. And sometimes judges' comments or sometimes the lawyers' submissions in the heat of the moment may provide fodder for this kind of cheap sensationalism that the media indulges in. I mean, I've heard so many times, expressions like judges ne fatkar lagai. Now, where you read the order of the court, it only says adjourned to so-and-so day. The judge has asked a question or the judge poses some sharp issues. Those are only questions to be answered and counsel respond to it. But this, you people being present there and, all these these online channels being present there, picking up everything which a judge says, picking up everything which a lawyer says, and then making that the subject matter of public debate, I think is interfering with the process of justice, and that is something which needs to be acted out. And I'll give you the latest example. In that Wangchuk's case, the Supreme Court entertained a petition by his wife. They issued notice. That's all that has happened in court. Yes, some submissions were made by the counsel for the petitioner, some submissions were made by the counsel for the government. The court has not taken any view on the matter. It has only issued notice. Now, that's where the news ends. Beyond that is all sensationalism. Said so-and-so said this, and so-and-so said this, and so-and-so judge said this. That has to stop someday. And I hope that's really something which we all need to address. Because it is this kind of a thing which then excites the misadventures of this kind with people who don't have the equanimity nor the maturity to accept the manner in which these comments are made and then behave in this fashion.
But should judges also be more sensitive? Is there a need for caution in the language that they use? Because at the core of this incident also lies
judges
the
have to be
claim
more
of
careful of what they say in court.
feelings.
Lawyers always have to be more careful of what they say in court. The vocabulary of the Supreme Court has deteriorated. I have said this before and I am saying this again, but that's a matter of, again, a debate for a separate day. The kind of things which lawyers say to the judges and sometimes the kind of comments that the judges make were not something which we heard 20 years ago or 10 years ago. But anyway, that's a debate for a separate day. But I strongly hold the view that judges must be free to ask whatever question they want, say whatever they like, and a lawyer must be free to say whatever he likes without the fear of social media jumping onto his back, without the fear of these daily newsmongers jumping onto his back, taking one sentence of the lawyer or one sentence of the judge and playing it up as breaking news or some sort of... this is interfering. If we are all very cagey about what we say because some youngster sitting there working for some news channel will pick it up and blow it up, then neither will the lawyer be doing his duty nor will the judge be clearing the air.
But sir, what do you make of the commentary that we are seeing around this attack, where it is being said now that The Chief Justice was attacked only because he is a Dalit. That seems to
this
be
is the trouble.
now the overwhelming
this kind of an incident gets into the political domain and social media takes over, then all these layers start. It's a Dalit Chief Justice, it is this. I mean, Justice Gajendra Gadkar was subjected to a similar treatment. He was not from the Dalit community. So, these kind of things, this is a nonsense. There was a man whose behavior was atrocious. I call it atrocious because he's a lawyer. He should have known better, either for publicity or out of genuine anger or God knows what. He comes and flings a shoe at the Chief Justice. It's a ridiculous incident. It's the real purpose for this. The real thing which we can learn from all this is that sensationalizing comments of judges should be eschewed. Instead of learning that, we are getting into, was he a Dalit Chief Justice and that's why a shoe was hurled, or what did he say, or should we throw this man into jail, should we put him into imprisonment, should we deport him to some other country, send him to Mars, whatever. I mean, that's all a useless discussion. Why aren't we asking the real question, why is this sensationalism being allowed, which leads to these kind of incidents?
No, and that's what.
And I remember, I believe,
because
Mr.
actually,
Sibal protested and the Solicitor General protested. That this social media is creating all this problem.
No, absolutely. Any right-thinking person has protested against it, and you're absolutely right. Are we missing the woods for the trees completely, Mr. Salve? Thanks very much for bringing sanity to the discussion.